thanks. Okay. Yep. So thanks very much to all the panelists today here, and to Nick, the chair. I just wanted to say something in general, not to make a question, but something regarding this idea of what to do with management and with organization. And I think what I've realized, I think once again in my life here, since I came to Sydney last year, is that working places tend to be very, very, very rarely democratic, And at university, I think it's a great example. And in my view, the way to have a sort of a coordination of this type of institution that works for everyone better is to introduce at least a minimum degree of democratic control and participation. And I think, something that is striking as a good example of how undemocratic or perhaps how uncontrollable the management of this university is to see what happened with the re-election of the VC. I just came last year here, was basically landing in Sydney when more than 3 people were about to be sacked, and that was a wonderful welcome. But of course, I was really glad to see, the reaction of many students and lecturers and members of the staff of all sorts, reacting to that, providing arguments, showing that it wasn't the only thing to happen, and so on. But of course, you started to hear, a lot of people with, taking for granted assumption that the VC had reached his limits, And of course, there was going to be a new election, and something better and brighter was going to come. And to all our knowledge, we know what we got here. And this is only a result of something that, in my view, is lacking in most working places nowadays, but particularly in universities. There is no democratic functioning whatsoever, no democratic control and participation of the coordinating organs of the institution. So unless, of course, I think the good thing about this type of debate is that we reach out further to the big picture sometimes, And all these internal things are great, but I think unless there is a substantial change in that type of internal organization and introduce it's not that we have to see how many votes we get for placing the rubbish bin here or there, but you need to have a minimum of control and input into what is happening. And as that happens, I think we're going to be in the cycle that I think Robert mentioned. There is no ceiling. There is no ceiling here. There is no end, unless we introduce some mechanism of control, which is based on ideas of democracy. So that was a general comment, anyway.
Does anyone else want to follow up on that? Yeah, Ed. Yeah, so down.
I finished my undergraduate degree in 1987, which was the year that the Dawkins reforms kicked in. And so I experienced the old sort of university as an undergraduate, and then the new kind of university developing as a postgraduate, a casual teacher, and so on. It seemed to me, even as an undergraduate, from my experience with a number of departments in this university, that the old system was really built on patronage and exploitation, and that when the managerialism came in, it didn't remove any of that, it just added an extra layer. And a perfect example of this was in my first full-time job at a university in Singapore, where we were told that in the past, if you wanted promotion, you had to do only 2 things. You had to talk, well, there were only 2 steps. You had to talk to your head of department, and they would then talk to the dean. And then this change was announced with great fanfare. There were now 18 separate steps, 18 particular parts of the process that needed to be gone through. But from the results, it was clear that the people who got promotion were the ones who were being groomed for leadership roles in the department. So really nothing had changed. And I mean, the casualisation of the workforce that lots of people have been talking about, I think that was always there. But with the competition for funds and competition between universities, that's been exacerbated. So I mean, I suppose my question would be, how can we rethink the role of academics in a way that preserves the good aspects of the old system, but as I think Hannah, you said, in a way that makes us accountable, not as this sort of autonomous units just operating in sort of individual isolation, but does make us accountable and makes us members of an academic community. In the sort of context that we're coping with, the managerial context that we're coping with.
The thing that did change with when those things happened was that women had more opportunity. So when you had the system where you speak to your head of department, they spoke to the dean, that did mean a lot of good, but did terrible things for female academics. And so we do know that had a very positive effect on the ability for female academics to make progress in the academy. But look, I think that it's gone. I think it's gone. That it's as much as we need to look at why we had collegial structures, what that was for, how that worked. But the university is a very different place. It has a very different. The public needs something different from us. That we have many more students, not just because we're a commercial organisation, but because we actually want to expand higher education, because we want a better society, because we want these things, different things. So I think we have to think again about knowing what our history is and knowing why we did those things in the past, but think again about how we protect the integrity of knowledge and get rid of the I'm trying not to use the word neoliberal anymore because it's kind of like a generic insult. So I want to be a bit more specific about what the cause of the problems are, but let's just, because we all know what it means. So while we want to get rid of all those aspects of neoliberalism that have infected our university, I want us to think newly about how we go about doing this and make ourselves accountable, not in the way that we tick boxes, but means that the structure of the integrity is built into everything that we do. And I don't know how to do that, and I think that's what we need to work on together. And I don't think we can trust the government to do it. That's not their job. I don't think we can even trust vice chancellors to do it. It's not their job either. I think it's ours. And that's where I think our agency is.
Sorry, just in response to that, I mean, I agree that it has had two effects. I mean, and we see the legacy of it in arbitrary decision making at times. We see it in that to get published you need pure peer review, but if you want an ARC grant, your name's attached to it, and it's like you're very well advised to have a good professorial collaborator if you're junior and all that bullshit. Yeah, absolutely. I think what we need to do is we need to work out how to make more transparent what we do. And I have this with my students. Like, I have students and they're like, oh, you're going on strike. Like, you don't do anything anyway. And it's like, yeah, I have students who come to this university, like, quote unquote, every day and no idea what I do. We do a massive amount of accountability tasks, but the public never really see it. And other than occasionally when we do media, people don't really get to see it. Not everyone's work is amenable to that. So we have to work out, and this maybe is where the agency thing comes in, for people to get a better understanding of what actually academics do on a day-to-day basis. And that's why I don't oppose sharing office space, right? I think us being all locked away in our cubicles with the door shut, I don't think that helps us. But we need to systematically work out how the public, as public servants, get to see us, because they certainly don't give a huge amount of an interest in our journal publication record, our conference papers or our books. But if they knew the work we do and the benefit, yeah? And so I think there is a language we can use that maybe does come from neoliberalism that we can reclaim, and that's the notion of public value. And talk about the public value that we create. Not necessarily in that liberal sense, but in that sense that we don't just teach your kids, we do all this stuff which is useful.
Have we got? Okay, yes, we've got a question or comment from.
Hi, my name is Kelly, and this is actually my second day in Sydney, and my first visit ever to Australia. My husband Udi and I are here as an invitation from Beatrice, who we met in March at a really wonderful conference in Byron Bay. We were both working in the academic system in the UK. I was a lecturer in education, and I was sort of both forced out and walked out all at the same time. And since then, we decided we need to go and visit higher education initiatives internationally that are asking this kind of fundamental question that I haven't really heard yet here is, well, what is a university for in the first place? What can it actually be? How can it actually address the huge problems that we face today in our lives? And also within that is what can learning be as part of that, and how can, and not just good learning, but what kind of learning experiences can we have that reconnect us with each other, with the earth, actually where we live, where we are on a day-to-day basis, and within ourselves. And so the places we've been visiting are organizing themselves as higher education initiatives through, well, they're emerging from social movements, they're emerging from ecological movements, from indigenous communities, and they're offering radically different models of what a learning environment can be, and they're completely under the radar. And so I guess I just, this conversation here, what's really interesting is it could be happening anywhere in the world. So far we've been in North America, Central America, South America, and the exact same conversations are happening. Everyone is disillusioned, everyone is miserable, wanting a change. How can the change come through? I also don't have any faith it can. And so I just kind of wanted to say that there's a lot of alternatives that are taking place out there that I think can offer some really fascinating and inspiring. I think inspiring is the main thing, good energy around what other ways we can all think about where university, or the idea that university can go in the future that perhaps is very different than any of us have been indoctrinated into the system as it has been.
I had a question for Hannah. I just wanted to bring up, you mentioned the issue of integrity, and I think one other person has as well. I'm looking, could you expand on that a bit? Because, I've been around the university system forever, and I'm not doubting what you're saying, but every academic that I've ever known has massive integrity in terms of the number of unpaid hours that they do over and above, what they have to do, the amazing sort of passion that they give to their students. So I'm just wondering where, I agree with you that the old system pre-Dawkins wasn't perfect, but I'm wondering, what specific things you're talking about.
Sure. Okay, so it's not to suggest that academics are in general lacking in integrity, though we see pockets of have horrible stories, like using the last remnants of collegial power to vote yourselves, performance bonuses based on nothing. All sorts of things do happen, but that's not really what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the structure of the university and the structure of trust and accountability. So the reasons that we have so many levels of reporting and of accountability is because the public went through a long phase of not trusting us. There seems to be some sense that trust is coming back a little bit. I don't think it's because we're giving them lots and lots of numbers. I think it's because that we're actually rebuilding that trust through better communication with the public about what we do, because what we do is amazing. It's true. And academics are incredible people. We're solving problem after problem, safer mining, looking after climate change, snake anti-venom. We're finding better ways of doing everything. It's wonderful. It's really, and educating more people than ever before. So there's every reason that academics should be trusted, and yet they're not. And I think that part of the problem of the old system, before we had to fill out endless forms and accountability measures, was that we legitimised ourselves. So we had our own professorial board who determined what knowledge was, who then said, yes, you're the one who has it. We know that because of measures that we invented, and then we'll reward ourselves for being good at what we do. So of course, this self-legitimisation was kind of incestuous. It worked in a way, but